This month, we've been exploring all things energy, how it shapes our bodies, our beliefs, and our way of being in the world. And today's conversation takes us somewhere we don't talk about nearly enough: communication. Our guest today is Grace C.W. Liu. Grace was raised in a traditional Chinese household where silence was expected and speaking up often led to anxiety and fear. But instead of staying small, she turned that struggle into her life's work. Now, with over 20 years of experience as a speech language pathologist, Grace helps women overcome what she calls stagnant communication syndrome, when fear, doubt, and internalized beliefs keep us from expressing ourselves authentically. She's developed a method that blends human design and something called quantum level reprogramming to help people move through these energetic blocks and finally speak with confidence and connection. Welcome to Flying Upstream, Grace.
Thank you, Kristyn. It's a great opportunity to be here today. So I want to say thank you. And I just look forward to sharing my message, my story with your audience today.
Amazing. Well, I'm so happy you're here. Let's start right at the core. Tell us, what exactly is stagnant communication syndrome?
Right. So I like to use this analogy, and most people are familiar with stagnant water, right? Where the water just stays still, and then over time it can get kind of muddy and murky, and it just doesn't look good, right? It just looks all dirty and all that. Well, that's what can happen with your communication, right? If you don't speak up or you don't value your worth and feel like you are worthy enough to speak up, you might end up feeling like there's a pattern of stagnation there where nothing is being moved. You're keeping your voice small. You're not voicing your opinion or your thoughts when you want to. You're not getting the desire that you want because you're holding yourself back. And so over time, that can make you, maybe your audience can relate to feeling that stagnation, that murky, muddy kind of feeling and the energy of that there's no flow in the communication.
That makes total sense. Now, you describe it as an energetic block, not just a lack of a skill. Can you talk Can you talk more about what that means?
Right. So I view communication as energy because when you're talking with somebody, you're not just speaking words, there's an energy involved, there's a feeling involved. So when you're talking with somebody, there's energy, right? And so if there's energy in everything, there's energy in your communication and energy in the words that you're using, energy in how you are presenting those words, body language, facial expressions, all of that plays a part. And so the person is not only hearing the words, but they're also feeling the words. And so there's that energy. And so sometimes you might just be saying something, but somebody hears it and feels it in a different way. And they can then misinterpret, or something maybe happens where there's either a connection or a breakdown. And so it's not just about the skill, but it's also about just knowing that, how our words and how our body language, how our facial expressions, everything plays a part into it and gives us an energy into our communication.
Yes, I love that, especially because I know I can remember as a child, you get one look from your mom, that stern look of like, don't do that. And right? No words were even said. And you know exactly what was being communicated there. And I think your own experience of growing up and intending to be silenced, right? Seen and not heard. I think that is unfortunately common for so many of us, especially being little girls. We were meant to just look cute and show up as needed to make our parents look good. How did your own childhood shape your understanding of voice and visibility?
Well, like you said, I was taught in my culture, my Chinese background, that girls are not to be heard, right? We're supposed to be like delicate flowers, like the China dolls. So therefore, we're supposed to be pristine. We're supposed to do things that are like quiet activities as such. And so any thought of like climbing a tree or playing with cars or anything like that will not be, looked upon as a good activity for any girls to do. However, I loved to climb trees, climbing fences, playing with cars and, and everything, anything that was like action packed and everything. And so my mom would always just say, "You're a girl, you need to sit down, you need, and, wear dresses and what have you." And so, you know, I say that I am a shy person, or people perceive me as a shy person. However, what I over time, what I have realized is because of the role that my parents put upon me, right? That I'm supposed to be this quiet, demure girl, dressed in nice dresses and be really quiet and, all these other things. I started to take on that persona, so to speak. And it took me a while to realize that this is not who I am. I'm actually very fun and fun loving and love to laugh and love to, do fun activities and, like skydiving or fire hooping. I like to do something. I have an adventurous streak. And so I've learned to embrace that. And that's what I want for other women to be able to do who are put into that box, but don't feel like they belong in that box and that they are worthy enough to feel like they can speak up and be who they want to be.
I so appreciate that. My childhood, I grew up on the East Coast in New York, and it was, not too far off from how you're describing, in the sense that I was supposed to just get good grades, study hard, take ballet lessons, be a good little girl, say hello to my parents' guests, and then leave. And that was about it. And I can really appreciate the path that you've taken since your childhood, which is unconventional. Most people would approach communication through public speaking or maybe voice coaching, but you're approaching it as energy. Tell me a bit more about how that came to you and why this approach has worked so well for you.
Well, I started off with, um, let me back up a bit because what really got me all started was I had learned bad communication patterns from my parents. The self criticism, the self doubt, and then also not arguing in the right way with my partner. So I had some issues with communication, and it was not getting me where I wanted to go. And in fact, I had a really bad argument with my husband, and it was enough of a wake up call for me. So, what I learned is that I had to like self reflect on myself first and kind of heal myself before I could be able to help others to kind of go in the same path, so to speak. So, meditation, journaling, self reflection. And it was all came down to like, how was I speaking to myself? Because if I didn't speak to myself in a loving, kind way, how could I even be able to communicate to somebody in that same way, or even feel confident enough then to honor myself to be able to speak up for myself? So it all came down to like, how was I speaking to myself? And so it all came down to like, we give compliments to other people so easily, right? We say, "Oh, I love your dress," or "Oh, I love your hair today," or "Great job on that presentation," or what have you. When we have the accomplishment, we don't acknowledge it. Actually, we just say, "Oh, I could have done better with this." "Oh, I should have said something about this." Or, "Gosh, I don't like the way my hair looks today," or something. But we never say something kind to ourselves like, "Hey, I did great with that presentation. You know what? I gave enough information that I needed to give today. Maybe I missed out on some stuff, but hey, it was meant to be. We just have to reframe how we speak to ourselves, so that way we acknowledge our accomplishments, acknowledge that we are doing great, so that way we then provide that worthiness to ourselves, and then we can then feel confident in speaking up for ourselves. And then we also know how we can talk to others as well, and that's where the energy comes from, right? It has to come from within in order to be able to share with others.
You are striking a chord with me right now, Grace. Oh my goodness. I have heard that the voice in our head, the way we talk to ourselves, is actually how our parents talk to us. And I know that voice very well in my head. And I have tried to make an effort to change that. And here's my story. Yesterday, so both my kids have been homesick with me all week. Yesterday, I take them to the doctor's office, and the parking garage there is not meant for modern cars. It is so tiny. It is nearly impossible to get in and out of these parking spaces. It's very difficult. So I go with my kids, and it says the garage is full, but I don't accept that. I go in anyway, and I was like, I'm going to find the one spot. So I do. I find the one spot that is open, but it was like at the wrong angle, hard to get into. And I said, I am going to get in this spot. And instead of telling myself, like, oh, I can't get in this spot, this is too hard, what should I do? Should I keep circling? I'm stressed out. I said, kids, stay calm. This is going to take a while. And I tell you, I spent, not kidding, 10 minutes getting into this parking spot because I went 2 inches forward, 2 inches back, 2 inches forward, 2 inches back for 10 minutes. It was completely insane. But I said, kids, I'm going to do this. I'm setting a goal. I'm not backing down. And my kids are in the back saying, go, mom, you can do it. But it occurred to me as I was going through this whole process that not only do I need to set an example for my children, which is that, hey, if you want something, you go for it and you find a way, even if it's something as simple as getting into a parking spot, but also teaching them and starting with myself, as you said, to change that voice in my head, to say, oh, my car is too big, it won't fit in. No, I can do this. I can make this work. And I am doing it. And it might take me a little longer. And there might be a line of 10 cars waiting to go past me, but I'm still going to do this. And that's so pivotal. What you're talking about is changing that voice in your head first before you can continue to give that to other people. So I love that you called that out, and thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that.
And yeah, that's why I say, the words, the communication is the energy, right? Because we put that energy into our being, into like, hey, I know I can do this, right? It all comes
Yes,
into that energy. It's not like a skill. You can say, here's things you can do, but if you don't feel it energetically, you're gonna just say, well, my car's not gonna fit. I'm not gonna do it, right? So.
exactly. Exactly. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit. I want to talk about the solution that you have created because it's so fascinating and I think it's so spot on. So, your framework is reframe, rescript, refresh. So, walk us through how that works.
Right. So I use the human design as part of the program, right? So that way the person can understand like the type, the authority, the strategy, the centers, all of that, because that's kind of like who the person is, and there's the energy in there. And then I use the quantum level reprogramming, which is the reframing your thoughts and using your higher power, using creator to help with the reframing. It's not a manipulation or anything. It's just you working with your higher self, or source or universe, whatever the audience decides here today to use those words. But it's really just about you and creator and your higher power working together to be able to reframe the thought, so then you can rescript, right? Instead of saying I can't do this, it's like I can do this, right? Or I haven't done it yet, I will do it, or it's happening. It's just be
Mhm.
able to rescript it so that you set a refresh, right? So that you're no longer in that old pattern. You're now stepping into this new pattern, into this new belief, so that you're starting a whole refresh so that you are then able to move forward.
Yes, I particularly like that because there's something very powerful in saying, "My past is my past, I can't change it, but I can change the future, and I can start with a clean slate. I can hit the refresh button every single day if that's what I need to." And it's not about when you're communicating, it's not always about just sounding confident. It's about believing that you have the right to speak in the first place, and that can create such a profound shift, especially for those who have been hushed and silenced growing up, where that was your norm. That was what was expected. That was the right thing to do. And then being able to hit that kind of redo button and start fresh going forward, I imagine is so powerful.
Right. So because a lot of the times have that old stories that play in our head, right? That leaves, like I said before, I mentioned about the stagnation, right? The communication stagnation there. And so if you can reframe that, then you're removing that stagnation, and then you get to hit that refresh. How many times have we said, "Oh, I'm such a failure," or I can't believe I made that mistake and everything, and we beat ourselves up, right? So if you then can reframe from that, like by just rescripting that, saying, hey, I learned about how to do this now, or hey, yeah, I got a lesson from this that has helped me to grow, right? And who doesn't want to grow and expand? So if you think of that way, you've rescripted. Now you get to refresh and say, hey, you know what? I am not afraid of any mistakes, because now I know these mistakes help me to expand and help me to grow and help me to get to up that next level that I want to go up to. And then it's just like, wow, how empowering is that? And that's the whole energy that you want, right? And then when you feel that energetic level within yourself, you're going to be able to then help others, and you're going to be able to then help everybody, because we're all energy. You and I, we're all connected. So if I'm growing, you're growing, everybody's growing, we're all expanding. And how great is that, right? That everybody then can up level, and we're just getting better and better. And that's what we all want. Like, that's part of, even like the millionaires and billionaires and what have you. It's not so much they want more money, it's like they're always looking for ways to expand, right? To do and find something. And because that's just part of human nature,
Hmm.
and we're all connected with that, and we just want to all be able to do it, and we all do it in our own unique specialties.
Yes, and I so appreciate that you brought this up, that we are not individual beings. We are all connected across our entire planet. We are connected to everybody through our energy. So you're absolutely right. What one person does affect other people. And so we are not only helping ourselves to heal and move forward, but we're helping everyone around us, people in our household, our coworkers, the coffee barista that you get coffee from every day, everyone you're coming in contact with, you're helping them in your own way. And I also love that you said, but each person is individual. So everyone has their own way of approaching this, because we all have our own pasts and we need to do it at different times and kind of what's right. So it is individual, but it's also collective. And I think this is kind of the spirit of what the meaning is when people say raising the vibration, right? So doing it all together, we're helping ourselves and we're helping other people uh, kind of reach a happier place in life, a more calm and happy place.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. So for someone listening right now who feels stuck, who's afraid to speak up or feels invisible, what would you say to her?
Well, I would just say, first of all, listen to how you are speaking to yourself. How many times are you critiquing yourself rather than giving yourself pat on the back, right? Just really catch yourself. I want to just say catch for your listeners who are out there. Catch yourself, and what are you saying to yourself? Is it a critique, or is it a compliment? Is it an acknowledgement of your accomplishments? Because that is going to help you then to start to feel more empowered, right? Because if you keep critiquing yourself, you're just going to make yourself smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But if you want to help yourself to by being empowering yourself first, then you need to start looking at how you are speaking to yourself and really catch yourself. Like, are you saying to yourself, I look great in this dress? Or maybe you found something, you say, this dress doesn't look good on me. Instead of saying this dress doesn't look good on me, you can just say, I like the color, but maybe the shape is not right. So I'll find a color that will be better for my body shape or something like that, right? So look at it that way. Because when you do that, then you start to embody your worth. It's, a lot of the times I don't think people realize that, not everybody's going to say, oh, I have a communication issue, but they're going to feel more like, oh, I can't speak up because of this, or I don't feel comfortable in sharing my thought or ideas about this, and it's because the person may not realize it's really their worth, the worthiness that they have for themselves may be what's blocking the person from sharing their thoughts or opinions. And so we want the person to start to embody their worthiness, and you embody your worthiness by starting to speaking more kindly to yourself, and it's all about, how you think and take the action and the words that you have towards yourself, so that way you feel energetically empowered, and then from there you will feel empowered enough to be able to speak and stand up for yourself and share your thoughts and ideas and your desires.
That's beautiful. I love that. Well, we are winding down here, and we have one last question for you. If your voice held the exact frequency of your worth, what truth would you speak today that you've been too afraid to say out loud?
Well, I would say that my voice matters and my words matters, and that I matter and that everyone matters.
Ooh, I love that. That gave me chills. That is so beautiful. And it's incredible how many of us have learned to stay small, to shrink our truth to fit into other people's comfort zones. And yet, as Grace has reminded us, our voice isn't just about words, it's energy, presence, and power. When you reconnect with your worth, your communication transforms. So, free spirits, if you're ready to break out of silence and into alignment, we hope today's episode gave you a spark. And if someone in your life needs that same spark, share this episode with them. Let's make sure no one feels like their voice doesn't matter. Follow us Flying Upstream wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review if this moved you. It helps more free spirits find us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and of course, keep flying upstream.